Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Wednesdays for Water, an initiative of the W4W Foundation, a think tank built as Citizens Collective, we welcome you to another session. We are actually approaching 60 plus session today. Today's session, we go international and have a discussion on community solutions to water problems. And it is part one of the series. We focus on global to local urban scales of issues. The sequel of the session is on 17th of August when we focus on the local to rural scale. In both the sessions, we are actually keen to learn about people coming together formally and semi-formally outside the formal institutions to think, to talk, and to act collectively on various social ecological aspects, such as water systems, as we discuss usually in the Wednesdays for Water and Friday Waters. So we will basically look at various social ecological aspects and of course, focusing on water. We wish to learn how communities come together internationally today to address global issues and percolate it to the local matters. So what is this, levels are working at different ways. How do they self-organize as group? How do they manage the collective? And then how do they act on the agenda which they set together for themselves? We try to get a sense with these three well-known international case studies I'm saying, which will be represented by our speakers today, and to understand what they really have to say from their own organizations and their work around there. So first we have Professor Marco Janssen, who will take us through the International Association for the Study of the Commons, which was founded in 1989 as the International Association for the Study of the Commons Property, in the guidance of Vincent and Eleanor Ostrom. Predominantly a researcher and academicians collective, but it also has a substantial presence of transdisciplinary scholars. And in fact, this is where I feel comfortable actually to associate with IASC, and I've been there since 2009, since I started PhD. Then we have Mary Eggert from Global Water Works community to tell us who they try and how they are really connecting the drops of interest, as they call, drops of interest of waves of impact to solve the global water crisis in a generation. Heavily ingrained in the Indian system, this entire community. So we are very keen to hear from Mary as well. We also have young discussant Amanda Gann, who is a Fulbright scholar. The Fulbright Commission itself is a kind of collective, I believe, and the entire Fulbright community today is very happy that we are quite a lot of Fulbrighters today. Marco was my Fulbright host when I went in 2016-17. So Amanda is basically looking at how citizens are working in India around water bodies at Azim Premji. So welcome Marco, Mary and Amanda. Before we start the conversation, I request actually to Megha to really take us through a detailed bio of the people around here, especially Marco, Mary and Amanda. Over to you, Megha.
Yeah. Thanks, Mansee. Welcome all and welcome our speakers, Marco, Mary and Amanda. So to brief about Marco, Janssen he's a professor in the School of Sustainability and director of the Center for Behavior, Institutions and the Environment. With a PhD in mathematics from Maastricht University and MA in econometrics and operational research from Erasmus University, he now explores whether experimental games can be effective tools to enhance the self-governing solutions in rural India. He's also involved with the cyber infrastructure development, such as the ComSys.net, for the use of computational modeling of socio-ecological system. You can, I'll be putting this bio on the chat as well, so people can refer it there as well. About Mary Eggert grew up in the water streets of Watertown, Wisconsin, USA, and she's been giving speeches on water pollution by the age of 12. Obviously, she was inspired at a very young age due to the 30-foot piles of sulfites and accumulation of the rock river that ran through her backyards. She spent the next 30 years in the financial and technological markets before returning to water in 2015. She started the Global Water Works because she was appraised by the 40% gap between the supply and demand of water anticipated by 2030. She's a bright, she's learned and through travels of Israel, California, and India, she's She has a brighter future in available, and all who agree to value water and to use technology and experts to measure, monitor, reduce, reuse, and recycle water. Mary has a journalism Bachelor of Arts from the University of Wisconsin and an MBA from Northwestern Kellogg University School of Business. She is an active member of WEF, the Smart Water Network Forum, and the Alliance of Water Efficiency. Over to you, Mansee. We'll introduce Amanda over when she starts her question answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Megha. Thank you. So, Marco, coming to you, we have worked together with Elinor Ostrom, and also we share Erasmus University and Arizona State University. Of course, you are there for a long, long time, but we talk about collective working together and social ecological systems. Could you please take us through the formation of the IASC and what it does, how it facilitates community building and activities, and what that means on the ground for, especially for your experience you had with Foundation for Ecological Security, just as an example. Yeah, over to you, Marco, and thanks once again for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Mansee, for this opportunity. I will get some slides and present a brief presentation. So thank you for the invitation to share my experience in of the ISC, the International Association for the Study of the Commons. I was the president in 2019-2020, and last year I was responsible for the global conference. And so based on that, I will share some of the insights I have of organizing and maintaining an international network. And I will give the water is in a way one of the topics in this society, but it's not in a way it's not all about water. A lot of my own research is about water, but it's a broader organization. So I will give a little bit a background how this organization, what this organization is doing, and also will give you some ideas how you could be involved. So the Commons, as probably most of you know, it's about the governance of shared resources. There's the problem of overuse of these resources and free riding. So some examples are people in this community are looking at fisheries, water use, air pollution. Actually, this photo here is about demonstration related to related to COVID, which was also a lot of commons related issues were and are still related to COVID, like the use of vaccines, for example, the sharing the vaccines. So this is a topic that there are people from many different kind of backgrounds have similar kind of dilemmas that they see in different domains, and the people who focus on kind of the commons in a broader sense, they like to share the insights on these different domains. So the organization, the ISC, in that way also people can learn how things work related to water, but also of how this relates to other topics. So there's a lot of cross-learning about different domains. So the origin of the ISC relates to the kind of debates on the commons. So there was the famous article of Gerrit Hardin about the tragedy of the commons, where he argued that external intervention is needed, that communities themselves cannot manage their shared resources, and it is needed to have privatization or nationalization of resources to avoid a tragedy. It had a lot of impact on policy, and that led also to a lot of scholars like Lynn Ostrom to study and collect case studies where they find that this is not the case in many studies they are finding. Actually, when the paper came out, Lynn Ostrom just finished her PhD on groundwater management in California, where people came together to solve the work on the groundwater problem. So in the 80s, a lot more people start systematically comparing case studies about many cases on forest, fisheries, water, and that in the end led to the development of an organization. So that's, in a way, it has a background in trying to come together to collect all the evidence that the tragedy commons is not always happening. And I'm trying to study in West situations, people are able to solve the commons dilemma. So in '89, the ISC was established. Lynn Ostrom was the first president, and Indiana University housed the secretariat. Indiana University University is was the home of where Lynn Ostrom was the professor. The secretariat is now at ASU, where I am. So we are managing the secretariat, and the mission of the ISC is, this is the literal mission, and it might be good to emphasize that it's focused on knowledge exchange and from different types of research, practitioners, policymakers, to improve governance and management and advance understanding and creating sustainable solutions for commons, common pool resource, or any other type of shared resource. So what is important here is that we are not focused on one particular discipline, that we want to have people from academics and from practice coming together, and it's about knowledge exchange. So we are not, in a way, advocates in that way, where we are trying to share knowledge. And so that's the main mission of the organization. So let's see, yeah. So what do? We organize events, and that's the way we are sharing the knowledge, and a lot of network opportunities. We have every 2 years, we have a large global conference, and that's an opportunity for people all over the world to come together and share their knowledge. We have also various workshops, regional and topical conferences, including a conference on water, for example. Like last year, we had a special conference on water. We have summer schools, and we have also an early career network for those who are kind of in the beginning stages of their career, and that's very important for people for professional development. We have also close collaboration with a International Journal of the Commons, which came out of our organization, which is an open access journal where you can find a lot of literature related to this area. And we have a podcast that started, I think, 2 years ago, and they now have more than 100 episodes. So those are all publicly available. So how does it work? Well, it's a member-based organization. So we have about 600 members at the moment. It fluctuates. So about half of them are from North America and Europe, but the other half is from the rest of the world. And to run the organization, we have a part-time employee, an executive director, who deals with a lot of the logistics that is important to run the organization, and that's why we need to have some income. The membership fee is income-based, but we have also a portion of the members who are sponsored, because we recognize that not everybody can be pay a membership fee. So we try to make it as accessible as possible, but we also have to pay our bills to have a person who deals with a lot of the things that are that have to be done, and that's not something that volunteers necessarily may be able to do. So the rest of the activities is more on the content. That depends on how members volunteer that time. So it's largely what people decide to do. And that's also later, if I will come back to some of the challenges. But so it's not that in a way that the organization structure is a president and a council. It's not that we define what all is happening. People can propose ideas for events, and we will try to find a way to implement it. So we have conferences. It's a mixture of academic talks and sharing experiences of practical cases. We have typically field trips. It's our important. Also, there's also good community building. I remember vividly most of the field trips that I have been in those conferences. They're often good experiences. So the conferences can be topical or regional, and there are what people appreciate a lot from ISC, that there is a huge mixture of disciplines and also backgrounds, and so it's often people don't have this kind of society in other organizations. So this is really kind of a home for a lot of people who are more interdisciplinary and also action oriented. So last year I had promised to organize the ISC 2021 in Arizona, but then COVID hit. And so we organized a series of 10 conferences. And so we split it up in, to make it doable, to split it up in different topics. So I just want to mention one of them was on the water commons, but you see there are other topics. We had two. All the recordings are still available. You have to be a member because this is not in a way in a public domain, but members have all free access to those recordings. And we had 180 live sessions, more than 1,000 unique participants, and almost 500 pre-recorded video presentations. So how could people participate? And so it's in a way everybody will pay a conference fee, but not everybody had to pay a conference fee, because we had a lot of sponsors where if people wanted to give a presentation or participate in a panel, they could ask for to be sponsored. So and those sponsor participants, they also got a membership for a year. So I mention it is because I know that $30 is a lot of money for people in India, and so there are, if people are contributing to give presentations, there are these options for also for these sponsored. So we try to make it accessible as possible. Now, what are the benefits of this participation? You learn about the work of others. You get feedback on your research or your practice. So, and this is not just research presentations. There are a lot of more kind of practical experiences and debates among people from work on different topics. We also sometimes have showing of movies or other kind of activities people do. You can meet new collaborators. That's what I will share in a moment, that I met some collaborators from India, for which I do now some of my research. It's also for professional development, learning new tools, and often people organize meetings with collaborators because it's often a unique time to meet people from all over the world to collaborate. So I met via the ISC people from IFPRI, the International Food Policy Research Institute, and FES, the Indian NGO on Foundation for Ecological Security. And we have been working together since 2013. And FES works on community-based activities, including, well, a lot of it's related to water, but it's not only water, but they work with more than 10,000 communities. We started doing work on whether the use of games and kind of various follow-up discussions, how that could contribute to improving water, groundwater governance. And that we found that was helpful. And now it's getting scaled up to almost 4,000 communities. And I have students going to India. I have one student from SES and now a graduate student with me at ASU. So thanks to the network I developed with ISC, I got to this unique collaboration. So this is an example for the importance of this kind of activities. So I'm not going to lead to the details about what the content is of why it's important to play games. There might be another kind of debate, but yeah, so we find that having this activity and debriefing improve involvement of people in finding their own solutions. So we are not imposing solutions, and that's really in the spirit of the study of the cons. And I think this is the last slide about the challenges, and that might be some of the discussion later. So we are depending on member states taking initiative. So that is sometimes a challenge because we don't want to dictate as a kind of leadership of the IFC what we are doing. So we are also depending on what the initiatives are of members, and we'll volunteer at a time. Besides somebody deals with a lot of logistics, it's people volunteering their time. And yeah, I can do that. I can go to my dean and ask, well, I'm asked to be the president of the ISC. Can you give me some time to allow me to do that? But I know that it's not always possible for all kinds of positions, especially if people are more in the practitioner's side. So that's a challenge that we experience. So that's why you see there is a bias of in our leadership from people who are often in academics. So because we get some time to that, but that's not always the case in more practitioner-oriented environments. And there's a small core group who in that way do a lot of the work. So that is I think that's a common issue with a lot of organizations, and that's also some of the challenges. I think, yeah, and this is a kind of a plug for the next conference, Global Biannual Conference. Next year, there's a global conference in Nairobi, Kenya, and on this website, you can find more information how to be part of this conference. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco. Thank you so much. And you really told how to weave as an international community. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. You really took us through as international community how we are working together, but at the same time you showed actually what it means to work on the ground. So you know, when we are all working on the ground, we also need some kind of a understanding how others work on the similar situations, how they do their dress and all. And these IASC platforms really help us do that. By the way, I was also part of the Water Commons conference last year with a panel. So why we are discussing this is as an association is that we need these kind of international communities, even if we are working at a local level. And I think Marie will take us further to understand how really then it is working on the ground as well, which IASC group is also working, as you rightly mentioned, that we being as a community based organization, we are relying on individuals doing their events, doing their activities on the ground. So I will invite now Marie to really chip in what exactly you guys are doing, because then we will try and see and ask more questions around. So over to you, Marie. Thank you again for joining us.
Yes, it's a real pleasure to be here, Mansee. And you and I met through Haran Chandra, who is
Yes.
a key partner to Global Water Works. And I see Ravalji here, who is part of that World of Water Action Forum that we regularly meet with. So I wanted to just give a nod to our India roots, shall we say. I surprisingly landed in India 2.5 years ago as part of a conference from the Chicago Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and they were hoping to bridge and share knowledge with India on what we were doing with the largest water reclamation center here. But since then, we've partnered with them to do many different activities, and rather than my trying to explain it, we created a 90-second overview to show how Global Water Works really is designed to bridge all the silos in the water sector to help you all who want to make a difference in water get more done faster. And so if you'll indulge me, I'll just share this quick video.
Sure.
It's 90 seconds and should give you a good understanding of what we're about.
The water sector is growing and getting smarter. Yet the challenges it is facing are also becoming more frequent. Aging infrastructure, emerging contaminants, floods, and drought impact water security, affordability, availability, and sustainability. As challenges appear to be increasing, innovation is also increasing, enabling those in search of solutions to find answers. Staying current could seem impossible unless you have a mighty network like Global Water Works. This award-winning 501c3 charitable organization is committing to solving the global water crisis in this generation, and it has provided a user-friendly interface to connect the people, processes, and technologies who are already making water work. Browse by topics, groups, or journeys. Search the global calendar and use location settings to find members near you wherever you travel. Check out the Growing Water Tech Showcase, where you will find proven solutions accompanied by case studies. To date, we've connected 2,300 water professionals and educators across more than 90 countries. Now, social media is not for everyone, but if you care about solving the global water crisis, you'll want to dive right in and get more done faster. Help us connect drops of interest.
The video's sort of stopped.
Okay.
Waves of impact, and start to tap a world of water experts at your fingertips. globalwaterworks.org.
So that provides a general overview of what we're about. What I thought would be easiest is if I take you on a tour through the community, because I know the people who are on this call are active. They're people who are making a difference where they're at. And I will share the community, which you can all join simply through this URL right up here, globalwaterworks.org. And all it takes is an email to get into the community. And when you get in, you will see a homepage, but I encourage you to go to the discovery page, because there you will see members near you, people who have actually are active in India, or if you're in Arizona, as Marco is, there are a number of members there, and you will be able to connect locally, because we believe a huge part, and it's wonderful to have an international community, but you actually need to apply solutions locally, as Marco expertly demonstrated with the Commons. And I am so excited about what you're doing with the FES group. I look forward to learning more about them. But you'll see top groups in the community. We have a Next Gen for Water, a group praying for water, a group working on atmospheric water. And what's interesting is the local groups are the most active. So these are regional groups that have set up a special page so that they can connect with their different stakeholders. And you can also go down. We try to feature things like this week. Mansee was the highlight in our weekly newsletter, but we also have a poll, and then we talk about what the organization is about, and we have tech talks where you can learn about the technologies in the community. And probably most relevant to all of you is this continuing education that can happen through a global calendar. And so you can see ways to get involved. You can sign up. Right now, we have this Community Solutions is live, you'll see right here. And so in the community we listed so people can easily get involved. But the best place, and here we are. So I should also mention, can add your community events to the calendar simply by using this plus button on the main page once you are involved, and do a quick post or add your event. And as Marco said, it's really, the community is what you make it. It's also a credit to all of those who are active in the community, whom you can see when you go into ambassadors. These are people who have actually invited a number of people to the community and started initiatives to advance specific water causes. And so when you come in, if you want to get to know the people who are really doing things, Apollo has an amazing plastic recovery program in India. Margaret is a leading woman in water in Kenya. But it truly is a global community, and one where we invite all of you to participate. And to get started, I encourage you to go into the journey to be a Global Waterworks ambassador. And the reason I suggest that is because it is set up so that it has simple steps that you can take the tour, get familiar with the community, you can create a profile. And that's the most important thing you can do, so that people see you and they know what your interests are. And then you can connect with other members just by saying hello, and you can see their activity in their profile. And so the ambassador journey is this great starting point. And it also includes a little bit of history about our organization. We got our start because we were working with Israel and California to solve their issues with the drought. They had a memorandum of understanding. So it was a very interesting initiative. You can follow through the videos here. And they were able to start 17 pilots and bridge the knowledge barrier between Israel and California to really make a difference. They're both similar climates, and they could lend their expertise so that they could focus on efficient irrigation in California, water reuse, and this whole movement of water reuse has catapulted forward through the efforts in California and with Israel. And our purpose, if you think about Global Waterworks, what we do and how you with any organization are active, you're always creating and you're approving and contributing content. And what we're doing is connecting experts around the globe and helping to engage and educate them through focus groups. And the end results should be that, successes are evident to everyone. And business is able to find solutions. When Mansee says we connect drops of interest for waves of impact, that's what that's about. And we also have visibility. We do have a number of media partnerships with the H2O Global News, the Endeavor B2B Media here in the US, and Water Online. And the World of Water Action Forum has a lot of media partnerships. And finally, we have the opportunity to get into technology, and technology was our roots. As Mega mentioned, when we formed Global Waterworks, we heard about the 40% gap of water ahead for all of us. We've since felt quite comfortable because water is infinitely recyclable. But we came out of a technology background, so wanted to share how technology works. So we've compiled 140 different solutions, actually, I think 138 in here with specific case studies. So anyone who has a water challenge can come in and search and find experts who are already working in reuse or other areas of technology and begin to explore them or contact them. And most of the due diligence is done for you here with the background on the companies and the case studies. And what is also important is we are about action, a community that's focused on making things happen. And when we find solutions that work, like Israel's solutions or the India solutions we're seeing with lake restoration and the great work you're doing, Mansee and Ravalji, we want to share them. And we created a group that specifically focuses on HABs remediation, a huge problem around our world. About 40% of lakes are contaminated or facing problems with eutrophication, too many nutrients. And the leading expert in HABs actually helped create this group to remediate HABs. So if anyone wants to find out solutions or paths to addressing this very big growing problem, they can come into this remediate HABs group. And I'll put all these links in the sidebar when done. But another part of our work is focusing on the beautiful work that the World of Water Action Forum is doing, and they have they're among the top 50 case studies, because if you haven't heard of them, they started out of Bangalore, but it's an amazing citizen-based initiative to save billions of liters, energy, and funds. And they do that by introducing water efficiency measures across the buildings, and also rainwater harvesting and reuse into cities. And it's a wonderful education process they've set up, beautiful resources, and I did put that link in the sidebar. But what's very exciting is seeing how members are now taking advantage of the community. And we have my own Lake County. Just this summer, we were able to launch a group for Lake County, and we learned that the high school has taken it the local lake under its care, and actually done studies, and they share how they engage students. And so any teacher could leverage these resources and see how they're collecting data, actually coming up with results and recommendations for the community. And Mansee, I just want to credit you with how you're engaging Amanda and the next generation to lead these discussions, because it's so enlightening what we miss and we're sort of stuck in our ways. But they provided recommendations for what the village can do, what residents can do, and we're hoping to have a showcase with them locally to talk about how we restore our lakes here in my very own Lake County, which is probably the most exciting effort that I've had since working on Global Waterworks, because I'm bringing it home, which is what we all want to do. And I'll just conclude with, everyone has a role to play, in this area. And this is an initiative by the Engineers Without Borders that they shared with the peace engineers, how when we get involved with water, you can actually not only help teach people about shared resources, but you can bring peace where there is war. There was conflict with the Pygmies and the local Ugandans. And what they found was that they brought in the water resources for the Pygmy refugees. They needed to also address the water resources for the Ugandans, and then teach them all about their shared resources. And they make available a beautiful education process, which is called Peace Engineering's Conscious Coalition. And we include references to this and those teaching materials here, thanks to the peace engineers. Could conscious leadership be the lever that we use to solve our world water problems together in community? And I just mentioned, I'm thrilled that we're working with the International Center for Clean Water in India, and give a hats off to Nanda Kumar there, who's organizing efforts across India with 60,000 schools. He's helping, and continual innovation with Professor Pradeep there. And then Haran Chandra has had this mission to adopt water solutions to make all of India efficient. And they are doing just incredible work. We're thrilled to be partners with their water savings. So that's sort of, again, Global Waterworks. It's here for you, and we invite you to join and make it your own membership. And just remember, when you come in, make sure you tell us about yourself by updating your personal profile and letting people know what you're about, what your interests are, and a little bit about the groups that you want to join and how we can contact you, because that's how we stay together forever, and we don't have to wonder about how to find local experts in water. So thank you very much. That's Global Waterworks, and we're at your service, but also here only because of your good work too. So Mansee, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mary. Thanks a lot to take us through this wonderful network of networks, And now I will reveal why I actually was very keen to have both of you together at one session, because often it is seen that the proponents of action, especially who are working in the formal sector, and youth are always very, very convinced about those who are working on the ground per se, like going and cleaning the water, for example. However, because a lot of the knowledge which happens at the background is unseen, based on which the action is happening on the ground. And there are many times, we tend to undermine the value of knowledge management to do the water management. So it is very important that these kind of networks are also realized as very crucial, because unless and until we are in a network, we are also not co-learning and evolving. So I will just give some clues here with these pointers and invite Amanda. But before that, Megha, will you please introduce Amanda for all of us?
Yeah. That was really interesting to know how the global water works and the network that it has created. And I'm sure Amanda has a few questions and tips to add to our session today. So Amanda Gann is a Fulbright Nehru US student researcher exploring multi-scalar ecology in India. Her work explores the development of adaptive architectural and infrastructural solutions, utilizing natural and machinized systems to respond to the changing climate. As a photographer and filmmaker, she believes in the power of visual and written storytelling to bring about collective action. She's currently collaborating with the faculty of Azim Premji University to develop an exhibition on rivers of life, which showcases our livelihood, threats, and the movements along 100 plus rivers throughout India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, which will be on display in September or October sometime in 2022. So I would request Amanda to actually come on board and describe her journey in this water world. Thanks.
Thanks, Megha. Amanda, so you are here in India and you are seeing how globally we are connected, and at the same time, locally you are working now with the people in India. And the rivers of life, which Megha was mentioning, we are also looking forward to it because it's also bringing children into the activities and college students and all. And now the dates are nearly final, I think in early November. So Amanda, as you see that we saw a network of scholars and practitioners, and you saw from Murray a network of networks where it has scholars and practitioners and all. And often as youth and as policymakers and practitioners, they are also asking questions that what are these people doing, So maybe you may be having many questions. How do they work? And do you think they are important or not? So you may ask your questions, please. Please go ahead and welcome again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And I loved when a couple of the things that I noticed that both of you really touched on was first thinking of accessibility, because I think community is something we think of as the people that surround us. But when we really look at international communities, we see a lot of differences. And so something that I really appreciate is that both of the organizations that you both highlighted today were really rooted in that idea of accessibility and commoning, like really thinking about the needs of all people, not just a specific group. And so I was just curious if you could go into, well, two things that I thought was really interesting. You both kind of covered how you got into these particular groups, but I'm curious if there was an inciting moment. I know, Mary, you covered that you grew up by this like pile of sulfites, and I'm just curious whether Marco can go into if there was any kind of inciting moment as to your engagement with water or with these kind of commoning resource conversations.
So this might be not necessarily one particular moment, but I start working. I worked first at the global level when I did my in beginning of my career, and got a little bit disappointed that not much happened. Where I worked in the climate change area and started working more on local issues, and I was looking for a collaborator a social scientist who want to work with me on because I'm doing more kind of computational activities. So then I met Lynn Ostrom at a meeting, and we start collaborating. And so that's how I got into the commons issue. Actually, I come originally from the Netherlands, and one of the first things that Elaine Ostrom asked me about, so how things work in the Netherlands? And I never thought about that because, yeah, I grew up below sea level in a way. So, so I start also looking more about my own situation in the Netherlands, how we have organized. So, yeah, I came into the kind of be involved with the commons when I was looking for social scientists to collaborate. I came more from a kind of a technocratic background originally, working in a governmental agency, and I wanted to find ways that actually could lead to solutions instead of kind of potential scenarios. And so when I discovered the kind of the commons community, I was kind of happy to see that people are actually can provide success cases. So that's how I got involved.
I appreciate that, because I think so many of us are have, at least my personal sort of story definitely starts with inciting moments in childhood that were completely unbeknownst to me as to where I've come today. So I was just curious whether, because Mary and I had a conversation about that, of just our childhood and how playing in the creek and those types of things really embedded this sense of stewardship to these landscapes of water. And so I'm sure a lot of that trickles down into a lot of the people that have been.
I have been told that I have been collecting litter when I was a small child to try to clean up the neighborhood, but I don't know why that was, but yeah.
So you were a steward from a very young age, is what I'm. Yeah, and I'm also curious because I know there's so many challenges that come up with international organizations, even organizing in general at various scales. So I'm curious if you could go into kind of what has been challenging for you and how you've overcome that. And then sort of to piggyback on that, if you have advice to people who might be interested in either creating something locally that can be kind of clicked into something like the Global Waterworks, or if there are ways to organize in an international way to really broaden our perspectives that we may have.
So one of the challenges that people find it important enough to put their time in kind of organizing things and being involved. And when I start being in a more leadership position at ISC, I was thinking what was for me important in my early career, and that was meeting some senior people. And I thought that especially for me, having a community international network of other early career people was really instrumental for my own career. And so that's why I pushed to have an early career network. And that's kind of, they are self-organized. So we gave them the choice to get develop their own kind of way of organizing themselves. We give them a space, and that's probably the most active part of the organization right now, because a lot of them, in the early parts of the career, it's really important to find collaborators for which you are collaborating probably for a decade. So that has been important. And yeah, you have to think about what is it that what people stimulate. So a lot of compared to the water works in the ISC has its roots in academics, and so there is a we have more kind of incentives in terms of publications, etc. So that's why conferences and journals and things like that are important. So you have to think about those outcomes that are important. So there's lots of how to, if you want to get people involved, you have to think about what motivates people in your community. And it's a little bit different in ISC than in the waterworks because of the more academic background. And yeah, we have somewhat different kind of incentives. People always want to have a kind of a publication out of things or a presentation. And so that's what you have to think about. And yeah, so, but the early career network, I think that has been is something like that is really critical in an organization, because those are the people who are often seeking for connections and building those relationships. And for them, it's important. And also be able to connect with more senior people.
Thank you for sharing that. Mary, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think as Marco said, it's the connections and local connections. So while we might, we actually started the idea of Global Waterworks. When I learned about this problem, I thought, oh, we have to create a massive video display and show everyone all the solutions. And I hired a person to help with this this showcase of videos. And then we had all the ideas together and went out to the water community and said, you know, just give us your lists and we'll tell them and give them access to all of this. And they said, well, no one's on LinkedIn, by the way, and we don't do digital, we're physical people. And so I said, oh my goodness, all of this work down the tubes. We do hope to roll out that video thing now that we've been through COVID. We've sort of been through the digital transformation a bit, but it really is about being local as well as virtual. And if you don't have the chance to connect, Zoom has helped, you know, but if you go to the Hyderabad conference I went to in India, it just gave me a total appreciation for what's going on there, and also an ability to speak in sort of the local language or understand the context. And that is key. So we've found in the water sector, many of these virtual platforms have started and they've gone nowhere because they really need to actually bridge to local groups. And as Marco said, ensure that there are stakeholders. And we're trying to shift the Global Waterworks focus to the individual groups that are already going. Like we'd love to have Wednesdays for Water have a continual stream through Global Waterworks so that we can elevate what you're doing, but not replicate what you're doing because it's so good. Why should someone else, why should we create a similar community thing when you guys are doing it expertly? So, and same with Fulbright and same with the Commons. So all of you are invited to create your movement and let's create a mega movement. That's our goal. But thanks.
I really appreciate that. The one thing, I actually explored the Global Waterworks platform last night, and I just really appreciated how easy it was. And that's something that I think is really challenging in a lot of these places is one, not knowing about it, I think is the first thing. I didn't know that it existed, and I was very excited to go into it because it has so many resources, and especially somebody that loves water issues and cares about all these different things, it's hard to find it all in one place. And so what's really cool about the Global Waterworks specifically is that it's like this one portal into a million different portals. And so I just really appreciated how you thought through that and how you responded to that conversation that you had about the local and the global and how do we actually connect those two. I am curious also, like, how you sort of walked us through, Mary, like really well in how to engage. And so I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to really talk about how, like, I guess, what's one step that people can do that are on this call or that watch this to really engage with each of your communities in a more like robust way?
Yeah, well, I think participating, well, in these World of Water Action forums that we do with Rivalji's here. Maybe Rivalji could comment on that. But just one, if anyone does have a local group, we have the capacity to equip you. And I'll just share what we did with River Y. They were trying to activate Parliament and other groups to pay attention to the pollution going into the River Wye. And a friend made me aware of them. And he said, I just think if they had a umbrella over themselves or some sort of place for people to connect, that they might get more traction. So we set up a little group. We created topics, news, and updates on their plans, and an event calendar for them. And it's very simple for us to do if you have an action group. And that's what we want to do with our rainwater harvesting, Rivalji, and also your soil efforts. And what we did then, as soon as they had that, they called the Parliament connections. Parliament joined. They called the local water utility. They were excited. They arranged a meeting. The local community college said, "Oh, we'll send kids down to work on this." And then they also grabbed the local NGOs to come together to write some letters when they had some contaminants there. And the best part was that they had a problem, and they were able to send over the photos of the lab results to our expert here in Oregon to get a reading on the toxicity of the problem. So connecting the globe with experts like Rivalji, having him accessible through our Global Waterworks platform. But Rivalji, might you comment on what we do with World of Water Tech, because you see it firsthand and might have an idea for how people could engage.
Thanks a lot. I'm honored. But I'm still learning whether we are part of water or we want to own water and take the custodianship of the natural resources. The whole world is behaving as the custodian, the only custodian of the resource which belongs to every life. So I'm not comfortable arriving at identifying at the area at which I should focus more. So I'm just trying to understand water first, because I am water. We are all water. Let us not use water as a recreational source. And the whole world is talking about water crisis and water shortage and all that. In comparison to that, the efforts going into saving water, and we are using water as a stock. How much we have used, how much is left, and how much we are worried. The water is not going to be consumed at all. So more we understand knowledge and train the children. Now we have to invest with the schools. I mean, talking to grown-up and governments and administration, they will all give us lip sympathy, but I'm not very hopeful about it. Without knowledge, there is no result, be it sports or music or anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raval sir. It is so nice to see you here, and also that helps us to really open the floor to even other participants. And Amanda, maybe you can take us through the participants' queries, and it will be nice. Okay, over to you, Amanda. You take us through with the participants also. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And does anybody have any questions I can facilitate, Rahul?
Yeah, I am Rahul Banerjee. I would like to make a comment, and that is that this session was supposed to be on urban water. So since there has not been anything so far on urban water problems, I would like to mention something in the Indian context. And that is that centralized supply, water supply and treatment of water are both extremely expensive. So whereas in cities like Chicago or Arizona, in Tempe and Arizona and all that, the charges are recovered from the users. User charges, they recover both capital and operating costs. In India, that is not the case. In India, less than 20% of the costs of centralized water supply and used water treatment are actually recovered. And so it's a big problem because urban local bodies don't have the resources. So Amanda, in your study of rivers, you must have seen that in the cities, all rivers, without exception, all the rivers in the cities in India are dirty because they are not being, treated properly. So that is why what Marco was talking about, local participation, community participation becomes extremely important. But and India has had a very long tradition of community participation because we had a community-based society. Unfortunately, the British devastated that. The British, we have to take in the historical aspects also, that we have had British colonialism here, and they devastated our community systems. And so now the community systems are not there. And when you try to get the community together, the bureaucratic system that is there, that is against it. So I don't know what your experience has been, Marco, in all these community games that you have played. But our own experience is that whenever we try to organize the community, Ostrom's principles, there is one major thing, that the community must be able to, secure its boundaries. If it cannot secure its boundaries, especially against the state, which in this case in India is always, coming into those boundaries, trespassing those boundaries of the community, it is very difficult actually to bring about community participation. And that is very important in the urban context, because as I said, centralized water management is not suitable for India. So you have to have localized water, both water harvesting, recharging, and also used water treatment and all that. And that is not happening in India. So I think I just to focus, because this whole thing was about both Marco and Mary brought in this community aspect. But I would just like to contextualize that in the case of India, that because of the state intervention, which has a colonial, background, it is very difficult for ensuring community participation for local action. Thank you.
This is
Marco, yes, please go ahead.
So
because it's more of a question of water management per se, where we are today focusing on how communities come together, and we are really not focusing what community does on the ground with the water. But I still invite Marco to just respond.
Yeah, so this is an area of concern too in the ISC, and so there are people who specifically look at different scales. So we have a community. We had last year a conference on urban commons. Actually, there's a lot of active participation from people in India who work on urban commons. Mansee is also heavily involved in those activities, and people working on policy-centered governance. So the issue of scale, how to deal with different levels of governance, is a kind of a research area. So that's also some of my own work. So yes, communities are, I didn't focus really on the content of all the topics we are doing, but communities are also communities within urban areas or larger landscape. So those are parts of discussions, and they are not only for water, as Mansee mentioned. These are broader issues. And part of my own research, I worked on water management in Mexico City, and this is we had a lot of similar issues as you mentioned. Yeah.
You are also working on water management in space, huh? So that is also something which
so yeah, not necessarily water management, but one of the new areas that we are looking at is the space, the outer space, which is actually if there can be a tragedy of the commons, that will be it, because there's no governmental body, and so there's we organize. It's a lot of interest in this because of the big issues. If we cannot have satellites in the coming years, that will be a big issue for a lot of activities here on planet Earth. So it's not managing our planetary commons is important. Yeah.
So anyway, just to bring back the conversation here is more on how communities come together on a particular issue. And today we are focusing on water. And Rahul will be our next session speaker also. So we will get into how villagers come together and really talk about coming together. It can be to save forest, it can be to women upliftment, it can be to water management, and so on and so forth. Anything which is a shared resource. So I bring back again, Amanda. You take it through to other questions from anyone else. Amanda.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I really appreciated the orientation to global and urban. And after, I know, Rakesh, you would like to speak. One quick question or one quick note is that what is also really at least common between the two groups that I've noticed is that there are resources to like the case studies and those types of things that can really give some more insight into how those big questions are solved locally. So I appreciate, your question, Rahul. Rakesh?
Yeah, so I think that what I wanted to mention is that we have to look at water from not only a local sense, which is critical, but also from a global sense. And I think that, on a space station, for example, we have a mass balance of water. We reuse the water, we treat the water adequately to be reused as drinking water. And so there's a mass balance that we are concerned about on the space station, because there is it's a huge expense to put water on the space station, as you know. So basically, we have to treat Earth as a planet, as a space station kind of thing. We have to conserve the water, and we have to worry about the water balance. People forget that in the US, we import avocados from Mexico, we are bringing in Mexican water, into the US. And then we are discharging that water as wastewater in the US, that if we can recycle that water, we actually are gaining water from other countries. And this imbalance of water trade, which is not trade actually, but which is coming in indirectly in the form of vegetables and fruits, needs every country has to worry about that, because when let's say a country exports mangoes or any other fruits, they're exporting water without knowing it, and that water is going out of the country, going out to other countries. And maybe if those countries can recycle the water, which we don't do obviously a very good job of, then we have gained water actually. And this imbalance is not recorded as a trade actually. So water is hidden in many places. And I think we have to consider communities. We have to go to a decentralized system or decentralized thinking. Wastewater and water has been centralized for many years. And I believe very strongly that this was the biggest blunder of mankind. When we tried to treat water through sewer lines and through centralized plants, we made a giant mistake, because we are taking water from one place and putting it into the ocean and then expecting it'll come back, but never comes back. So decentralized treatment is the only critical solution, where every community is a decentralized treatment system, can be used as decentralized treatment. So we can make a water balance for every community actually, because the water doesn't leave the community, it stays there, gets treated right there, and gets reused right there. So this is the first step towards water balance. And then we have to look at a global water balance too, because the example I gave, avocados coming from Mexico into the US, we are bringing in Mexican water. That Mexico has to understand that they are exporting water to the United States without knowing it. So, and they will run out of water sooner than later. So this is something that we have to worry about. So the balance has to be first done on a decentralized. The centralized systems was a big blunder of mankind. We have to undo that. We have to understand that the water treatment is decentralized, should be in every community, maybe every house. I mean, one of the things we promote in the US is put a treatment system behind the house and reuse the water for your lawn, rather than have a sewer line that takes the water into the Ohio River and ends up in the ocean as salt water and never comes back to Ohio, by the way. So this is something that we have to do. And this is possible today because, previously we didn't have the communication capabilities. We didn't have the electronics to send alarms. We now have that capability. So we can have little plants everywhere, all over the country. Every village, every town, every little house every community can have a small plant, and we can reuse the water locally because it doesn't have to be pumped backwards through miles and miles of pipes in that case. And we can reuse the water locally. And we try to make a water balance in that situation, and that's possible. And then these little plants can communicate alarms and so forth, wirelessly. So we can manage them. We can manage the purpose of water utilities. It would not be to run giant plants as they're doing right now, but would be to manage these little plants everywhere because they can get alarms wirelessly to them. and they can then send out people to repair them. So basically, we have to go from centralized to decentralized. This is the first step to water management, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Rakesh, you are circling what Rahul was also mentioning. Huh? So Amanda, decentralized is part of self-organizing. Huh? So,
I was just a quick note on that. I think it's really interesting to think about just the idea of the space station that you were talking about as the globe, and to think about our hydrological cycle and our water as a finite resource in that capacity, and really our responsibility as a global community that ties us all together, because we are all connected through just the idea of water, just the resource of water, and as entities unto itself. So I appreciated that analogy, because I think it works really well as a scalar shift from global, like they create a little world on the space station. So I thought that was really powerful. Vishal, I know you had a question. I'm gonna hold time for you.
Yeah, thanks. So I have a small remark for Marco. So, you know, when you think of the IASC, you know, as a community, right, as a community of scholars studying the commons, you know, so different kinds of scholars use different approaches to study the commons. They ask different kinds of questions. They use different, you know, conceptual frameworks, tools, methods. Like economists and anthropologists look at commons in very different ways. So do you think that do you see this as a source of tension, you know, within academics, in the sense that it comes in the way of developing a shared understanding or passion for the commons? Or do you see this difference as a source of richness, you know, that allows us to look at different aspects of the commons using different lenses, asking different kinds of questions, using different kinds of methods? So what would be your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. I think there are sometimes tensions, but if you are not open to different perspectives, then the ISC might not be the place for you. So you have to be open to be challenged from different perspectives. Sure. So I came from a more economics background, and I have learned to really a number of different insights from other disciplines that I really appreciate, and that also impacted my work, how I'm approaching it. So there might be some sub-communities that are not really actively participating, but that's, yeah, but I think there's a broad representation of very different approaches, but people are open to critique in a way. If you are not open to that, then yeah, then you want to stay in your kind of more probably disciplinary area. But I like it to learn. I learned a lot of more using qualitative approaches. That's also I start using more qualitative approaches myself by learning the value of it from other colleagues. So,
yeah. Thank you.
So, Amanda, yes. So, do you have any questions, or any participants have any questions to ask our speakers or suggestions? We'll take it and we'll then wind up today.
I just had one final question.
Sure. Go ahead.
What do you feel that the international conversation affords us that maybe we don't necessarily get locally? I'm just curious if either of you have come across something that's very powerful to talk about at that scale, that we should really be engaging with our international partners and international colleagues in that way, that maybe we can use local knowledge, but really be having that conversation at an international scale.
Yeah, I'll chime in there. Just the redundancy, amazing. We have so much need to address water issues. And if we can do so by building on each other's successes, like the transfer of knowledge from Israel to California was huge in accelerating their impact. And we hear about duplicate efforts across Africa. where people are doing the same thing or else creating something that was already created. So I think that's the transfer of knowledge is a huge win to being international and having that perspective. So
Yeah,
thanks. Good.
I agree to be able to compare and learn what are the key components that make things work in different places. Actually, I'm only in recent years started working locally in Arizona. So I typically have been working internationally. But also, if I don't work locally, so well, this is what I have seen look like what I've seen in India. So so there's a lot of you learn from seeing a lot of cases, and that's important to not to reinvent the wheel. So you learn from success and failures from other parts of the world.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that a lot in the Fulbright community as well. We're all kind of going off and learning from different places that may that allow us to take that back to maybe where we're from or to a different place. And what I have definitely taken away is that we're not so dissimilar. I think we as an international community can think in siloed ways of we are so different from that culture or this culture or that place. And you really see a lot of overlap. And I'm also really inspired by the kind of conversations that are happening at a climate scale or as an ecology scale. So people are talking about, an arid region and another arid region all the way across the world, but having similar groundwater issues or, drought issues, those types of things. And we can learn from one another and definitely learn from the failures. So I appreciate both of you for sharing these two amazing organizations that we can all be part of, and just for really giving us access to this new community at large. Really grateful.
Our pleasure. And we hope to continue the conversation online.
Thank you. Participants are requested to please mute themselves. I see some people are not muted who are not speakers. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Marco, for giving us insights on IASC, and on Mary for giving us insights on Global Water Works. And of course, Amanda and me, we share Fulbright as a community. The idea for discussing today was to actually understand how people come together, and the urban component was brought and rightfully questioned by Rahul about how these things can be discussed on the ground. So just a disclaimer today that we were actually not talking about what people are doing per se, but then because water management is people management, we thought that we will take up these these two sessions to understand how people come together to discuss about an issue. It can be any issue. So when we then look at these heterogeneous urban communities, we actually understand why urban people are unable to come together and discuss. And we did talk about, conflicting situations of coming together. When we are even scholars network, like Vishal was asking this question, So unless and until people come together to discuss, which does not happen many a times in the urban areas, and that is why we have the centralized systems or governmentalized systems. But I think we will go a little further in the next session because it's a two-session series, and we will try to understand how people actually sit on the ground, where we are right now talking about sitting, of course, on the ground. Each one of us are doing works on the ground as well. But then we are trying to also do more knowledge exchange at a global scale to understand and do meta-analysis, to do research, exchange of scholars, exchange of practitioners, and also importantly, which is very much undermined in the action field or the proponents of action, I will say particularly in the policy and government, is the documentation and dissemination of what is going on. That includes both success as well as failure. And that is, I think, an important part of these kind of knowledge networks. So we have to understand two important things today from both the speakers, that A, water management requires people management. B, water management also requires knowledge management, and some people have to do the knowledge management, what is done on the ground. And these networks and networks of networks and they are really trying their bit, and we are also trying our bit on the ground, some of us with little groups here and there, and we will continue doing that as a conversation towards water conservation. I thank Amanda, our young discussant today, who was really very, very sharp to take us through and keep our speakers really, give us good answers to her. And thank you all the participants for making Wednesdays for Water a meaningful discussion series. We really look forward to your support and encouragement as we have been doing. We have crossed over 100 speakers a long time ago, and we are now trying to reach 100 sessions by December. And we are really, really looking forward to having much more meaningful sessions with all of you. Next session, please do join us where we go into the grassroots of Indian context and we see how villagers come together, what kind of discussions they do, and how do they agree to do certain things, and how do they resolve their conflicts, how do they set their boundaries, who decides for them, and all those kind of things. Do join us on 17th of August, same time, 5 p.m. Once again, I thank all of you, and particularly Marco, Mary, and Amanda to take out time. Remember, for Marco, it was really 4 a.m. to join this session for us. So I'm really grateful to all of you to be here today. Thank you so much. Please take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. Have a good night,
Real
everybody.
pleasure.
Thank
You
you.
guys too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll stay in
Thank you
touch.
so much.